impacted by others. And the session will be recorded as well. So we'd appreciate it if you could put yourselves on mute. A number of people have come in unmuted and I've just muted them. There's a lot of background noise we want to remove from the session to make it easier for everybody. Okay, so I think we've got people in from the waiting room. So firstly, welcome. Thank you for giving up part of your afternoon for this presentation. My name is Patrick Reed. I'll be presenting to you alongside my colleague Peter, who's here, and thank you to the University Career Service for the opportunity to present to you this morning. So Peter, let's start with the slides. If you could share the screen and we'll go in.
Okie dokie. Give me a second.
Okay, so the session this morning, we want to discuss with you and offer some work experience advice for international students in the UK. And we're an external organisation to the university, but have quite a long history of working with students from different backgrounds. So Peter, if we can go to the agenda slide. So, or the profile slide, I should say. Okay, so just a little bit of background on myself. I'm very familiar with Manchester. I did my biochemistry degree back in 1983 at what was called UMIST, now part of Manchester University. Did a PhD in the biochemistry department and subsequently an MBA in Manchester Business School. When I graduated, I got a job with ICI Colours and Fine Chemicals in Blakely, worked there for several years before moving to pharmaceuticals in Audley Edge, where I worked for Zeneca and then AstraZeneca for approximately some 20 years. During that time, I had different roles in medical affairs, marketing, e-business, and innovation. Leaving the company in 2010 when I became a consultant and started coaching for a variety of organizations. I'm currently working for the Birkdale Collective with Peter. So I have a broad industry experience working at the international level. I also work with quite a large number of universities in the UK, so have a lot of experience of both undergraduate and master's areas of education. And also one of the roles I had within AstraZeneca was creating and starting an industrial placement program, which was very successful in identifying future talent for the organization. So Peter, next slide. So what do we want to do this afternoon? In the time we've got, we want to discuss with you how to find opportunities in the UK. We want to talk to you about some misconceptions and misunderstandings that you may have about that process. And I think what we say will be very supportive of what the Career Service and others will be telling you in the coming weeks ahead. And it's quite important that you do listen to the advice that's offered. We want to talk about how you demonstrate your strengths and weaknesses. And we want to tell you a little bit about the organization, and Peter is going to jump in at the end and give you a little bit of background. And just like to say, there's no stupid questions here. I think if one of you has a question, then please ask in the chat, and we'll also open up for questions at the end of the session. And we'll do our best to answer those or to signpost you to sources of information that may be useful to you. Okay. So let's talk about some opportunities in the UK and go through some basics to begin with. So firstly, you need to be aware that there are sort of two types of roles for university students, undergraduates and postgraduates. The first are the graduate schemes. These are run by the larger companies. They often involve training and a job rotation, usually done over 2 or 3 years of your initial employment period with the company. They usually start to advertise quite early. So I think PwC, as an example, has already started advertising for its intake, and the other bigger companies, the big four, the banks, the consulting companies, they're likely to advertise their graduate schemes pretty soon, within the next couple of weeks, as soon as term begins to start. These graduate schemes often involve promotion at the university, so many of these employers will come and offer talks at the university or virtually, and you'll receive invitations to those or promotion about those. If you get the chance to go, I would strongly recommend that you do. You'll learn a lot about the organization and get an opportunity to interact with people. There are also what we call graduate jobs. Now, the graduate jobs can be advertised any time of year. And this sometimes are companies like TPP in Leeds. They do have a graduate scheme. They do some block recruitment, but they also can have individual vacancies that may come up, and they may advertise them separately. So it's quite common for mid-sized to smaller companies to have what we call graduate jobs. There isn't a training scheme. However, the salaries are similar. They're usually benchmarked. The roles have the same level of requirement in terms of ability and in terms of your interaction with staff, and they're generally equivalent to the graduate schemes. So I wouldn't worry too much about the distinction for them. Should say that competition for the graduate schemes is very high. You should be aware in the UK there are 300,000 master's students. There's about 600,000 third-year undergraduates. So you can imagine how many applicants these companies actually receive from people. So it's important that you take time to optimize any application. Okay, Peter, next slide. So what do companies look for? What do they want from you as potential employees? Well, there's several things they want to see. They want strong motivation, passion, and drive. And it's very easy to test for this just by asking you one or two questions. You've really got to be sort of engaged beyond your course program. It's not sufficient just to have the academic qualifications. You've got to know and take an interest in the industry, and they'll test for that. And we'll talk a little bit about that in one or two of the following slides. They also want leadership and teamwork. Now, in different countries, this may mean different things. In the UK, leadership is about having a clear vision and helping your team members build capability so the whole organization does well. So be aware of some of the differences that may occur due to culture because of these definitions. Strong communication skills. They don't want you just to be able to write a strong application. They want you to be confident. They want you to present well to others. Often assessment centers may involve you giving a presentation to a small audience of employees and answering questions. So it's very important on your university course that if you get the opportunity to present with your group, that you take those opportunities. It's a friendly environment. You can learn a lot by doing it, build your confidence. You've got to be curious, questioning, and have critical thinking skills. If you're a postgraduate, you'll know that master's students are very much focused on critical thinking and critical analysis. Undergraduate students are much more focused on being able to describe things. But employers like you to be curious. They want you to ask questions. If things are wrong, they want you to tell them. And again, in some cultures, that's not always the case. But in UK culture, particularly European and American, we like to debate things. Debating things is fine when you have an opinion and you have the information to back it up. So this is something that employers respect. They want you to be able to problem solve. They want you to be proactive, not just wait till the problem arises. But if you see something that isn't right, they want you to deal with it. That's a good orientation, and they value employees that take that sense of pride in what they do. You should also have some knowledge of any company you apply for and take some time to build commercial awareness around the industry, the challenges, the opportunities, and the trends. What we observe is one of the biggest causes of failure at an interview is really lack of knowledge about the company and the industry of the organization. So it's really vital that you take time aside to read about the organization, the industry, the opportunities and challenges that exist for it. And they want applicants who excite them. At the end of the day, they want to be able to say that they're happy to share an office with you. It's not just getting a tick in the box for the academic marks and scores. It's about whether they like you, whether you've got a warm personality. Are you somebody that they'd be happy to have a coffee with? So you've got to be aware of these things that employers look for as they go through the assessment process with you. Okay, Peter, next slide. So they also want applicants who share their values, match their recruitment criteria, innovative and think for themselves. And graduates will always be working in teams. So evidence of teamwork is always looked for, typically in a graduate interview and a selection process. So do think about examples that you can offer to support these things during the assessment process. Next one, Peter. So what does the recruitment process look like? Well, I've got some bad news for some of you. If you're applying for a large organization, as I've said, there's going to be a lot of competition. What that means is the organizations invest a lot of money in developing a number of steps to filter people. So the larger the organization, typically the more complex the assessment and recruitment process is. You may start your journey individually by possibly developing a career plan, identifying industries you're interested in. Then you're going to search for applications. Then you're probably going to send off a CV and a cover letter, or maybe fill in an online application. When the company receives that, you may be invited to do an online test. And then you may be invited, upon successful completion of that test, to do an online job simulation or an online interview. Currently, the large companies are using AI platforms like HireVue, so Unilever, HSBC, PwC, Deloitte, all of these organizations are using AI platforms, and they're looking very carefully at your body language as well as what you say. So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Is there emotion when you're giving your answers? Can they see that and measure it? So usually when you get through the interview stage, you may have an assessment center, and then you may receive a job offer or a further interview. So typically, you're going to go through a number of stages. Each stage requires you individually to undertake some preparation to be ready for that stage. And given this is the start of term, the time is right for most of you to begin that plan and begin that preparation to give you the best chance of success in the future. If you fail to prepare, you'll find the process becomes almost unmanageable, because you will have pressure from your department at the same time that you're expected to apply for jobs. So it's better to start the planning and preparation process now to give you the best opportunity for success, would be our advice. And I'm sure the career service would totally support that view. So you should be making use of what's available to you. Peter, next slide. So how are you going to demonstrate your strengths and weaknesses? So let's just go into this in a little bit more detail. So firstly, commercial awareness. And we also mentioned earlier motivation. So a question for you. If you want a job in banking and you're doing finance, do you know the names of the regulators in the UK? Can you name them? If you can, this demonstrates you've got commercial awareness. If you're doing an engineering course, what magazine are you reading when you finish your course in the afternoon? Are you reading a magazine like The Engineer? That would be good. That would help you develop knowledge about what is happening in the industry, what's happening with industry leaders. So each and every one of you, depending on your degree discipline, should be aware of the professional bodies, the magazines, the standards that are applied in your discipline. If you're doing marketing, you should have heard of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. If you're doing digital marketing, you should have heard of an organization called e-consultancy. If you haven't, then there's a problem, The problem is that your commercial awareness is very low. That will diminish your chance of success. So it's important to take the time to read and learn outside the course that you're actually doing. That is essential. Peter, next slide. So it's very important that you use your time at university. And there are lots of ways that you can do it. If you're an undergraduate, you can apply possibly for a spring week experience in a large organization. There you'll learn about the company, get a chance to network. You'll see the jobs that are available. If you're a second year student and an internship is available to you for a year out between the second and third year, we would advise you to get that experience. It's valued as much as the degree discipline by employers. So experience is very valuable, but that experience, you've got to have taken responsibility and be able to describe it to others for it to be valued by employers. You may get the opportunity to be involved in insight days, and also through some of the student union societies, you may get speakers and the opportunities to visit companies, and you should consider whether there's value in this for you. You may also be able to get placements during the summer. If you're not able to get an internship, you may be able to get a summer placement for 8 to 12 weeks, depending on how long you have. And these are also valuable. If you're a master's student, sometimes it's possible to do your master's dissertation alongside an external organization. That can give you some interactions, and that also increases the value of your qualification longer term, in my opinion. You may also be able to do voluntary work. If you're living in a hall of residence, there'll be socials committees. If you're involved in the student union, you could be organizing events and speaking with external organizations to engage with them for some particular reason or activity. So it's valuable to do some voluntary work as well. If you're an overseas student, the voluntary work is very helpful because it often gives you the opportunity to speak in English and a high level of English, which can be very helpful. So it can help develop your English language skills, help make you more fluent, to help you later in an interview process. This can be very valuable. It's really important that you should be speaking probably 70 to 80% English during the time you're here to be successful in an assessment process. Okay, Peter, next slide. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some misconceptions and misunderstandings that students have. Now, some of you will have heard of this gentleman, Gert Hofstede, used to work for IBM in the 1970s when IBM was a very large company. He did some analysis of IBM employees and subsequently of employees working more globally. And he found that there were some specific differences between different nationalities. Hopefully, many of you will have seen this before. If you haven't, I strongly recommend you seek out the website and have a look at it. You'll get some good advice from that website. There's a couple of things that as you look at this chart, you need to be aware of. Let's look at, for instance, individualism. So you can see the UK bar, which is in yellow, is very high compared to the other countries. And for those of you that have been in the UK for a long time, you can see that we value individualism a lot. We want you to have an opinion. We're happy for you to be different. Other cultures are different. Chinese culture, Confucius-based, harmony in the group is very important. In the UK, we like to debate, argue. We like to be different. And we can do that, I guess, partly because we've got a smaller population. So having debate is easier for us. But you've got to be aware that assessors, who will be probably UK nationals, will also want you to be able to debate things. They may say to you, what is your opinion? And they may expect you to give an opinion. So you've got to be aware of that. Also, if you look at the UK, you can see that the indulgence level is quite high. And at the start of term in Freshers Week, you often see this. UK students tend to go out drinking quite a lot, whereas overseas students tend not to do that. They tend to go on more social visits with their friends. But there are cultural differences that you will see as a student and also in the working environment that are important for you to understand. So do take a little bit of time to research this a little bit more, would be my advice to you. Peter, next slide. So other issues that are experienced, unfamiliarity with Western culture. I've mentioned the definition of leadership as a potential area of difference. You've got to understand what is meant by logical thinking, and critical analysis, particularly if you're a postgraduate student. This is what's going to get you a higher mark for your assignments. You may have a lack of understanding of the jobs market. A lot of overseas students forget that in the UK, the graduate applications are made in the autumn generally. So they're made 6 to 9 months before you're available for employment. You've got to understand the needs of the company and got to be able to read the job descriptions and understand them. All of you now should be developing skills in how to write your CV, how to write cover letters. There'll be various workshops and templates available to you from different sources, including the Career Service. You should make use of these when they're available to you. You really want to get some experience of the UK application process, preferably with some mid-sized companies before you go for the bigger companies. So the sooner you start applying, the sooner that you will develop that experience. Interview skills, any form of assessment is like a sport. If you practice it, you get better. So for instance, if you're asked about a time you work in a team, if you've answered that question before and practiced the answer, you will do better. So it is important that you begin to practice interview questions and answers to help develop things. You've also got to understand your own abilities, your own strengths, and how those relate to the types of jobs that you're going to seek. This is really important. Peter, next slide. So some key points about the environment that you're in. Being based at Manchester University, it's very easy to forget that there's Salford University down the road. You know, we have a lot of universities and colleges around us. There are, I think, somewhere in the region of 130 universities, and then there's other additional private colleges which can be added to that. You've got to be aware that there's approximately 2.4 million students. There's a lot of international students in the UK, both undergraduate and postgraduate. And as I said earlier, for the master's students in the UK, there's 300,000. This is a lot. So you've got to be aware that you're not alone. There is significant competition between people for the jobs that are advertised. So you've got to do your best to prepare and refine your approach to maximize your chance of success. Peter, next slide, please. And recently, within the last couple of years, there's been quite an increase in the numbers of students from both China and India in the UK. So those people wishing to stay, again, there's quite a high level of competition within those groups. And obviously with Brexit, it's much easier now for companies to take a more international view of employees because we're no longer having to consider European employees in the same way that we've done in the past. Peter, next slide. So there are some common challenges that all of you have and should consider. What's going to make you stand out from the other students and the other international students that you're here with in the UK? What makes you different? What makes you different from the home students? It's quite interesting in the UK, you can often work from the age of 16. So home students often have quite a lot of work experience before they come to university. So what has been your experience of internships and jobs prior to starting the university course? Do you have any? If you met a UK professional, what would you ask them? What would the conversation be like? Or would you turn your back and walk in the opposite direction? How confident are you to engage with people you've not met before? And how would you engage in a group discussion? If you go up to a group of people, how are you going to introduce yourself? Have you thought about how you do that? You'll be able to get some practice in the coming weeks at the university and on campus. So take time to meet people. It's a good skill to have. Do you understand UK business etiquette? And how strong is your commercial awareness for the course that you do? You could well be a top student getting 70% for your academic work, but you may find that your commercial awareness is actually very low. They're not correlatable. So you've got to be aware that you've got to get balance. It's not just academic excellence. You've also got to build that commercial awareness at the same time. So it's important. Recent example I had of that was yesterday. I was coaching somebody who wanted a job, and they told me they were skilled in project management. And my first question to them was, can you name a methodology for project management that you've used? They couldn't name a methodology. I was hoping that they would have mentioned Prince2 or Agile, but they were not able to mention a single methodology, having told me that they'd completed a whole unit on this as part of their degree. So it's really important that you have strong commercial awareness, or at an interview, you'll simply get tripped up in the first couple of questions. Okay, Peter, next slide. So this one's over to Peter, I think. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague. Peter's going to talk a little bit about Birkdale Collective and who we are. So Peter, over to you.
Thank you. Just to add to a couple of things I was thinking about just while Patrick was talking there. We're doing this session a little bit earlier than we often do. And the concern of English ability is actually one that you can seriously address at the moment. I think it's obviously, especially with any Chinese students who have approached us in the past, the ability to speak English is something you can't change quickly. But if you've just arrived in the UK, it is something you can address right now. As Patrick said, you really should be aiming for sort of 70–80% of the time speaking English while you're especially while you're at university and you know, physically at university, not in your personal time, because you have all these opportunities on campus with the University of Manchester, especially to interact with employers and things like that, and you want to make sure you build up a decent level of English. You know, that employers won't expect immaculate English from international students, but you know, you do have this time on your side at the moment. You know, worrying about your English ability when you apply for jobs, when you've finished your dissertation or something at the end of your course, means you've got a really big problem in front of you and not a lot of time to deal with it. So now's a really good time to think about how you address your English ability and the kind of things you can do to fix that. So as Patrick mentioned, you know, make sure you join groups and volunteer with different societies. And it's very easy in Manchester. Both Patrick and myself are based here and have a lot of experience in talking to students from University of Manchester for the last 10 years or so. It's very easy to get sucked into the very nice culture that has built up for international students. You know, there's a very big Chinatown, there's a lot of KTVs, you can get a lot of food you would be able to get at home here now, not just if you're from China, but several different nations have got different areas and different restaurants you can go visit now, and you can almost live like you're not here, which is good to some extent. You need that. I lived in China myself for 7 years, and I know you need a taste of home sometimes, but don't get too sucked into all of that. Try and make some friends who are not from your home country and interact with others who you can communicate in English with, and that will help you to come along a lot faster. If you worry about it at the end of your course, it's a bit more of a problem, not just for companies such as ours, even for your career service to give you any advice at that point in time. And the other point just that was briefly touched on is that you guys are students at University of Manchester, which is one of the most targeted universities in the UK. There's 10 or so that the big companies, as Patrick said, the big four and most of the major consulting firms and accounting firms and so on, they target you guys. They're doing it right now. So ourselves, even the career service, we don't create the deadlines when you know that are set by companies for you to apply for jobs. They happen in October and November, you know, in some cases right now. So when you have these opportunities to interact with these companies, make sure you take them, because you're at a very good university for that. So make sure you get yourself to those career fairs and use them, because how often are you going to get a chance to interact face to face and learn about a company without really going anywhere? You literally, you know, it will be on your campus. So make sure you use that. And again, linked to English ability, you know, it's good to practice before that how you would address some of those questions that Patrick mentioned, so that you're ready to talk to people when you go and interact with employers. They don't want to hear stuff like, I want to apply for your company because you're a big business and stuff like that. They want to hear like real deep knowledge about the industry, and they want to experience your passion and your knowledge about what's happening with their business. It will make you a lot more engaging as an applicant. All right, so they were just a few things that I thought of while Patrick was talking there that you know, we can go a bit deeper into. Another area as well, at the end of these slides, I will give you a few ways to contact us, but we do actually have a PDF which we can give to our colleagues at the Career Service as well. It's about 5 pages long of all the different websites we recommend for commercial awareness, depending on what you're studying and what area you want to go work in. So we can provide that to you, so that might be of assistance for you to just build up your knowledge and just know what to follow really while you're in the UK, and stay ahead of the news and stuff. Again, it's useful when you have the sessions and everything. Okay. So there were a few things I just wanted to add, but we've got just under half an hour left, and if we like to save about 20 minutes or so for questions, because there's normally quite a few, but just tell you a little bit about our company. Myself, I've worked with international students in China and here, so I've been doing it nearly 15 years, and Patrick obviously has explained his experience as well. There's a team of 13 of us who work for my company, all of which are very experienced with international students. We all have a belief that all international students need a lot of help. It shouldn't cost you loads and loads of money, which is one of the primary reasons for me setting up this business. So it should be inclusive and fair, and also affordable too. And we also offer career coaching for obviously for international students, but for sports professionals and entertainment professionals as well. And most recently, we've been helping the government with the Homes for Ukraine scheme. So any Ukraine people who fled the war in Ukraine, we've been helping them with their job search and CVs and stuff here, which we've had some success with as well already. So we're doing a few different bits and bobs. The most high profile thing we've done with sports is working with Manchester City so far, which was very enjoyable, which is on this little slide about company history. We launched just over a year ago now, but as I say, we've got more than 10 years experience ourselves with this. We got our first offer very quickly, a gentleman who got an offer with a recruitment firm, and we've had lots of good landmarks along the way, majority of which are just us solidifying ourselves as a good partner for a lot of different universities like your one, and companies and organizations as well. So we've managed to achieve quite a lot in a short space of time. We've got good working relationships, obviously, with the University of Manchester and a few different universities of different sizes in this region, and more than that now, actually, to be honest, but they don't fit on the slide. And we've got memberships with Association for Coaching and Football Trade Directory for our sports work as well. Just a few things about career coaching, really, to summarize based on what Patrick has already said, and this not just goes for our company, but also what the uni does as well. It obviously speeds up your applications. It helps to motivate you as well. One of the most important things you need to know about applying for jobs, if you don't know this already, is you're going to fail. So you need to have that motivation to continue all the time. It's very easy as an international student to be like, oh, I failed, it's too difficult. And all your friends are telling you it's too difficult to get a job here. In all honesty, it's not as difficult as people say, but you just have to keep yourselves motivated and get onto the next application and make sure you work out what you're doing wrong with, the support that you've got on offer, and try and just keep making progress. A lot of people have to make sometimes 10 or 20 applications. Some people we've known make as many as 40 or 50 applications in order to get 10 or 12 interviews, in order to get 2 or 3 job offers. You know, it's not just I apply for a job, I get an offer, and that's it. You know, sometimes you will apply for things that you're not going to get the job in anyway. You know, there's already too many applicants, or there's diversity rules and that are going to affect your application or whatever. Sometimes it's just when you applied a bit late or something. You know, there's lots of factors that mean you weren't ever going to be considered anyway. So you just have to keep carrying on and making sure you're doing your applications to a good quality, and you're realizing what potential mistakes you're making. Try and get feedback all the time as well. That's important. Obviously, coaching and assistance from career services will help open your eyes to more stuff. The career fair that University of Manchester will have, I believe there is an international fair as well that maybe Barras and Ghazi can tell you about later, or they'll send you emails about it anyway. But there's a lot of opportunities maybe you didn't think about as an international student, and it will help you obviously to get yourself organized and make your applications in a better way, and improve your time management too. Again, a common thing for international students. It's very exciting. Most of you have just arrived here, or you're going to arrive here soon. So you're thinking, you know, I'll get started, I'll get traveling around the UK, I'll even go to Paris or Barcelona or whatever, and you forget about your application. So make sure that your time management is that you don't have to put loads and loads of time into applying for jobs. You know, an hour every day would be perfectly sufficient to just think about it or read about things, or even obviously make applications as well. Sometimes even not an hour a day, but you just need to make sure you're thinking about it all the time, and that's what's going to get you some success. Okay, and again, as Patrick kind of covered, transferable skills is something that you can develop through all the different things we've been talking about through this session, you know, like volunteering, part-time work, and obviously in the stuff that you do at university as well. All right, so there's some sort of key selling points that we have. For more content, this session is being recorded, and I will write this down in the chat as well, but there's loads of ways you can contact us if you want. Facebook if you're ancient, or Twitter, Instagram we have as well, which you can follow us for nice pictures and stuff. LinkedIn, we share a lot of company updates, and obviously if you're Chinese, there's a couple of options as well. We have a company WeChat page, which is the QR code is on the screen there. My personal WeChat ID is at the bottom there, PT Davis, which you can add now if you want to. And the Red Book, which we use for sort of sharing a little bit more information and resources as well, and answering a few questions people send our way. So feel free to follow us on any of those that you wish to. And that's it. So that QR code takes you to our our contact us page. So I can open it up now to any questions. Myself and Patrick will cover them. We've got like exactly 20 minutes, so that's good. Any questions you guys have, write them in the chat box, and we will respond to each one as we go. Anyone got any questions you can add? If not, we can finish super early, but I'm sure there should be some questions. You got anything to add based on what we've been discussing, Patrick?
I think I'd really just support what you've said, and I think what the Career Service has said, which is, you know, all of you are about to start a new academic year. You're going to have some challenges on the academic side in terms of maintaining steady progress, and it's really important to begin to consider, while you have some time before term starts, you know, what are the actions you personally are going to take to fulfill your career aspirations. And that does take some planning and preparation. And I would just highlight, the sooner you start that process, the more likely you are to be successful.
We have a few questions.
Okay, so I can see Rushing's.
Yep, Rushing, do you want to ask your question?
You need to unmute.
maybe.
Hi. So I've got some questions. The first one would be is there any age limitation for the applicants in the UK jobs? Because I'm almost 30 years old, so I'm going to look for the job in the financial field, such as the consulting company and also the investment bank.
Sure. Okay, so let me have a go, and then maybe Peter may want to dive in. So there's no age restriction. You'll be able to apply as a graduate to the investment banks and the consulting companies. They're often mature students in both undergraduate and postgraduate courses in the UK. The issue will be for you that your salary will start at a graduate level. However, the company will be aware of the age difference and will probably try and promote you quite quickly. So ideally, if you're older and you've got some relevant industry experience, you would probably find that although your salary would be at a low level, you'd probably find that you would accelerate quite quickly in terms of promotion. That would be the best outcome for you. Mid-size and smaller companies might find that a little bit harder to do. But it doesn't stop you from applying, and then you can let the company make an offer and then decide if they accept that offer. When I did a PhD, I would observe that some companies paid me for having the PhD a little bit extra, others did not. I ended up working with a company that paid slightly extra for the qualification. So I think you'll find this out quite quickly as you apply. Hope that helps a little bit.
Nothing to add to that. That's pretty much covers it. We got a question from Dina. If I end up applying for the graduate visa route and at some point I get an offer from a company that would sponsor my tier 2, is it easy to switch that visa? Is it possible to switch the visa easily? How does that work?
Okay, so for any visa related advice, I'd always recommend speaking to the international officer at the university. They're border agency trained, and they should be able to give you the latest position because the laws change. If you've got a visa, let's say that's sponsored by one company, and then you decide you want to work for another, then there is a bit more of a challenge. The bar to be able to do that switch is higher, because then you go as a experienced candidate. So it's better to seek the job that you want whilst you've got the student visa. Now, with the post-study visas, the PSWs that have come out, I think the companies are still learning about the benefit or how to process those. The challenge is that UK companies see employees as permanent staff, so they're not really interested to what extent you may have a PSW or not. I mean, it may be convenient to accelerate the process at the beginning, but most UK companies would want to make a permanent offer. If they want temporary staff, they would just simply go to an agency and get a temporary worker on a fixed term contract. So I'm not sure that the PSW is going to be as attractive for the larger companies in the UK. I think they'll probably ignore it because it doesn't really meet their business need. And they would be concerned about training somebody and then losing them, because the training in the UK often involves quite an investment of the organization in accommodation, travel, and external training fees. So a company would not want to spend money on training just to simply lose somebody after 1.5, 2 years. So I think that would be a bit of a difficult one for them. Peter, not sure if you want to add anything.
Yeah, the PSW visa is good in that it gives you guys as international students more time to apply, which is its actual intention. It's not, the intention of it is not really so that you work up for 1 year or something on it. As Patrick says, it won't appeal to big businesses to spend a lot of money, which they do spend a lot of money on training schemes and graduate schemes and stuff for you guys to actually leave. So it would in most cases involve you getting on a tier 2 visa as quickly as possible, and that, if you wish to work here, should be your aim. A tier 2 visa, obviously accompanied with that, gets a more solid contract and better links to the company itself, which gives you more benefits, you know, pension and all that sort of business that you want really from working in the UK. So it's good for that to be your aim. So I guess our advice, as we're not visa experts, you know, please go to your international office for that. But you know, our advice would be that you use it as a way to apply for jobs if you're short on time, rather than a means to work for a very long period of time. Okay.
Okay, and Hong Yi, you've asked about graduating this autumn and looking for a job. Yes, you can apply now, but the companies that recruit you, they have to apply for your visa before the visa expires. So you've got to get the job offer before the expiry of the visa. Now, if you're graduating in September, with a confirmation by the exam board in November and a graduation in January, but if you finish the course in September, you've probably got to try and get through quite quickly through the assessment center so the company can make you an offer before the expiry of your visa. We have seen companies in the past, so I've seen TPP, Lloyds Bank in Birmingham, make offers up till about 1 or 2 weeks before expiry of the visa of an international student. But this is rare, so it does happen, but it requires you to do a lot of things quite quickly, I believe. That would be my sense. Peter, I don't know if you want to add anything to.
Nothing to add to that. Okay. Pretty much covers it. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, there you go. Should I apply for a graduate visa firstly to leave me enough time? Yeah, as we said in the last, on the previous question, I think it is its purpose. You know, it's to help international students stay for a bit longer and figure out if they really want to stay here and make applications and have evidence of making applications and hopefully start a job. So that's entirely your personal choice. I don't know how late you have to leave it to begin your application for the graduate visa anyway. Again, that's something you can talk to your international office about, but the intention of it is to help you with time, because that's the main limitation. And hopefully for any new students in this call who are just about to embark on their studies, you know, you can take heed from these kind of answers, because time does catch up with you very, very quickly. You know, it's good to start thinking about this now. So yeah, you can use that to extend your time if you need. Okay. Anybody else got any questions? We've got a tiny bit more time left. Perhaps not. Oh, there we go. Oh, yes. Couple more.
Okay.
Is there any barriers if I want to apply for a job that might not be so relevant to my course?
Okay, let me dive in and answer this. I can give you a very specific example. So I did a biochemistry degree. I got a job in an IT department in a chemical company. When I was interviewed, one of the things I'd done during the biochemistry degree was to write some software to analyze my data. But I was not a computer scientist. I was a biochemist. So in answer to your question, there are no barriers. You can change degree discipline, but you must have some very good examples of where you've developed skills in the area you want to go into. If, for instance, you're doing accounting and you want to go into digital marketing, you can do that. You could do a Google digital marketing course for free, 40 hours. You could do some websites. You could build a portfolio of some campaigns that you've done, maybe for a student union society. You could provide enough evidence through experience of having skills. But that does take passion, and it does take desire to do that. And not many students have that passion or desire to make that transition. But if you can evidence it, it will be helpful, and the assessors will take that into account in the application. So you can do it, but you've got to think about it, plan it out, and really take the opportunities that are around you to demonstrate that motivation to an assessor in the future.
That's a very good question, Yuichi. I'm a journalist, so similar to Patrick, like completely different career trajectory from the one I started out. And as a journalist, I was pretty successful. I worked for Sky Sports News and BBC and stuff, and did loads of different things which I really enjoyed, but took those transferable skills onto work in international education after that. So both of us, and I don't know that many people who graduated and my age for sure who actually work in the field that they graduated in themselves. So I think it's not something you have to be, if you have to be stuck with if you're worried about that. Good question. Dina's isn't so much of a.
Yeah, I think the observation is fair, Dina. I think UK companies see students as a long-term investment. They don't really want to be making an investment just simply to lose it. It's a fair position. I can understand why.
Yeah. Cool.
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen, while you've got the opportunity? We're very happy to try and. Okay, about that, and I really want to improve my English speaking. Where do I volunteer to your job to cultivate my skills? Okay, so a lot of people volunteer in charity shops because they get the opportunity to mix with the manager of the shop, but also the customers. So you're dealing with members of the public. Also, if you work in coffee shops, Costa Coffee, Pret, Starbucks, you get a lot of interaction with people. You're talking all the time to the customers, so you get forced into a situation where your English level will have to improve quite quickly. Joining societies can be very helpful, particularly in the areas that you're interested in. So if, for instance, you're into consulting and there's a consulting society, being involved in the meetings can help. Often societies that you don't expect can be very helpful. So for instance, the hiking club, they organize coach trips to the Lake District. When people are on the coach, they talk to each other. When they go walking, they talk in a group as they're walking to their target area. So basically, some of the clubs you don't expect give you the opportunity to interact with people in a very personal way. The hiking club is one of those where, you can get, to talk to people on the coach on the way there, the way back, and also while you're walking. And that's quite good. It takes, you've got to be a little bit brave to do that, I guess. But, if you dive in and you engage, people will see that you're engaging and will begin to engage with you as well. So I would encourage you to take those opportunities. You never get an opportunity to mix with so many different people from so many different backgrounds and experiences while you're at university. It would be sad to be at university and not have those rich experiences. And I think all of you should actively seek them out. I think you would be regretful later on if you didn't. So I would encourage you to look widely at the societies as well. They can be very, very helpful, I think, in giving you some confidence.
There's another, you guys are very lucky to be in Manchester. It's one of the biggest cities in the UK outside of London. And as such, we get a lot of big fairs, big events, sometimes concerts, sometimes more business-like stuff. Sometimes it's even conventions with celebrities and things like that. These kinds of events are always looking for volunteers, and they're a great way of you getting out there, chatting to people, making friends here, but also getting some cool experiences which you can actually add to your CV. A couple of days volunteering on one weekend, you can work at, I recently was talking to a student and found that there is in Lancaster actually, but a student who wanted to get some experience in the fashion industry, and in October there is a huge fashion event happening that are looking for volunteers right now, and they'll give you some free stuff and maybe pay for your travel and your food and everything, but the experience itself is great. You can network, you can get to know people who have similar interests to you, and that will also improve your English skills as well. So there's as Patrick said, there's things like charity shops, there's all sorts of bits like societies you can apply for, but use what's happening in Manchester as well. Try and stay ahead of that, because there's a lot of things that you could get involved in. And yes, ASEC are a very good organization. We've encountered a lot of students who have got involved in that with them in the past. So good recommendation. And I think, unless maybe we might be able to squeeze one more question in, but you'd have to type very quickly, or we can just end it there. Obviously, we've given you lots of ways to contact us, and your careers service also will be available to you. Make sure you go visit, or you drop them an email. They send loads of stuff. There's a very helpful LinkedIn group that I'm part of with the uni, where there's loads of events happening at University of Manchester, and online and face-to-face as well. So make sure you get involved in as much as you can. Okay. And I think we can probably end it there, Patrick.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Right, thank you very much. The recording will be sent out to your to our colleagues at the uni, and they will also provide anyone who registered to this with the link to it. Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Cheers.